Alright, the Bucks. It is Talking Buccaneers with me, Fumane, and yeah, today I have a thought that I kind of want to come to you with in light of preseason, in light of everything that has happened in preseason. This is specifically because Orlando Pirates has signed a lot of midfielders, and we see a lot of them get tried out in the preseason, a couple of experimentations with certain players in certain positions. And I've been thinking a lot about, okay, what are some of the possibilities that Pirates can go for in terms of formation in order to fit some of the best players on the pitch at the same time going forward. So yeah, a couple of days back, I put out a tweet. I don't know if I think it's called an X post now, in which I had a formation which I called the best Pirates formation. And the formation had a 4-2-3-1 set up with the goalkeeper being Sipho Chain, left back being Mbegezeli Mbogazi, the centre back being Olisanda on the left, and Thabiso Sesane as a right centre back, and then at right back I had Sibilibili, and then my double pivot was Sipho Mbule and Talent Mbata. In front of them, Karim Kimvidi. On the left wing, Relebogile Mofokeng. On the right wing, Patrick Maswanganyi, and as the centre forward, Tshegofatso Mabasa, which, if I say the least, caused a massive row on X. It caused people to lose their minds, to call me a plumber that I am. How could I have such a formation? How could I have such weaknesses at left back and right back? How can I have Tito on the right wing? How can I have Karim Kimvidi as the central attacking midfielder? And I'm doing this video to explain my logic, but I'm really trying to explain the greater logic behind the video that I went for. Now, something that I've been thinking a lot about, Jose Rivero and the way that he set up Orlando Pirates is, I think in his case, as opposed to Ouaddou, his formation and the way that he lined up was largely formed by limitation than it is by options. I think where Ouaddou has the opportunity to use his imagination in terms of who to line up for Pirates, I beg your pardon, Jose Rivero was limited by personnel. This is not to say he didn't have a lot of players at Pirates. It is to say the kind of players that were the best players forced him into the formation, into the lineups that he had. I think, with specifically the opportunity that Ouaddou has now, with such a bolstered squad, especially in the midfield positions, especially at centre back, especially at centre forward, you might even say at left wing, it's going to be tricky, but it's the kind of tricky that you want for a head coach to pick his best 11, because you've got, say, maybe 2 very good left wingers, you've got about 3 very good centre backs, and how do you get all of them on the pitch? How do you make the whole system work together so that you don't have too many centre backs but now forced to play a defensive formation? How do you continue to assert dominance, assert control, keep possession, create chances while having your best players on the pitch? Even though, like I say, at centre back, it's a case of we have 3 very good centre backs. How do you get all of them on the pitch. And the first thing I want to say is that's something that I saw in preseason. I think a lot of the experimentations that Abdeslam Ouaddou was experimenting with certain players in certain positions, I think was similar thinking. They were informed by the fact that he very much knows that he's got certain players that he's got to try to figure out how to play together because they're just the best players. And the case in point is at centre back, we have teenage sensation Abdeslam Ouaddou, who has broken through at Pirates and seems like he's undroppable now. But at centre back, you've also got Olisanda and you've got Thabiso Sesane, whom, all things considered, upon their return, you very much expect that they should command a starting 11 place because they are very good centre backs. You don't want to have Nda and sit him on the bench. You don't want to have Mbogazi and sit him on the bench. But you also don't want to have Sesane and sit him on the bench. So how do you play all of them? And I think one thing that we saw, first of all, is we saw Mbogazi being experimented with at left back. Now, a lot of people were surprised to see that sort of thing, but to me it made sense. I think the way that it made sense for me was mainly because I thought, yes, when Da and Sesane come back, how do you also play Mbogazi with them? And the obvious route for me was you play him at left back. But it depends how you play him at left back, and I'm going to get to that. The other experiment which we saw was Patrick Maswanganyi at right wing. Now, it's important to say that, Patrick Maswanganyi at right wing is not a new thing. It is the sort of thing that he has done at SuperSport United. At SuperSport United, in fact, he even played at left wing. At Orlando Pirates, when, Munapule Saleng started to go missing, we saw a couple of players play at right wing, namely Patrick Maswanganyi, Kabelo Dlamini, and Karim Kimwidi. Those are some of the players that we saw play that right wing. And in preseason, Abdeslam Ouaddou has now experimented with Patrick Maswanganyi at right wing, specifically in the last game versus Granada. He played Maswanganyi on the right, and I think it might have been Snokolo Kwayiba who was playing centrally at the time. And for me, it kind of prompted this thought that I've been thinking about, which is, how do you fit Patrick Maswanganyi in the 11? How do you also fit Kabelo Dlamini and Sipombule? And make sure you've got even a defensive midfielder. And then, as well as what I've already spoken about, which is, how do you get Mbogazi on the pitch while Nda and Sesane is there? Or do you have to sacrifice one of them? Is it that Pirates is looking at all of them as just, squad depth? Is Pirates saying, we're gonna see Nda as someone who just gives us squad depth? Or is Pirates thinking, we want to get Nda on the pitch, we want to get Sesane on the pitch? Or are they thinking he's just squad depth? Are they thinking Mbogazi is just going to form squad depth as well? I refuse to think so. I think where Pirates is at right now, what they're thinking is, we want to field Mbogazi, we want to field Nda, we want to field Sesane, we want to field Maswanganyi, but we want to also field Sipombule, because there's a combination that can be had there. And we want to get Kabelo Dlamini on the pitch as well. And how do we get Kimvwiri playing as well? How do we get Cameron Danson? And then how do we get Nduli and Talent Mbata as well? How do we get Ozwin Apolis and Lebkhile Mfukeng? How do we get Sibilebele on the pitch as well? And I think that's the kind of the headache that Abdeslam Ouaddou has. And it's a good headache for him to have. But I think a very good coach will then form the formation around what he has. And this is very much what I want to come to you, Buccaneers, with in this video is with what we have, how do we form a formation which is symmetric, which is balanced, which doesn't compromise us defensively, which doesn't compromise us offensively, but it kind of gives us balance offensively and defensively? How do we do that with the players that we have, with fitting the best players that we can and making sure that we don't compromise on certain aspects? Now, there is no perfect team. I want to be clear about that. Every very good team, every excellent team, every phenomenal team has its weaknesses. But I think the point is, what's the team that minimizes our weaknesses and maximizes our strengths? And so, by no means when I say these things am I saying this is the most complete team and it has no weaknesses. Because even your best team will have its weaknesses. which I can point out, whether it be goal scoring, whether it be counter-attacking, whether it be all those kind of things. But here's what I want to propose in this video specifically. I want to propose two things. I want to propose for Orlando Pirates to play with Mbogazi at left back. I want to propose that Patrick Maswanganyi plays as a right winger, and I want to propose that Orlando Pirates plays with Karim Kimvwidi as a number 10. And those are my two propositions. Maybe the fourth one, my three propositions, and maybe the fourth one would be I want to propose for Orlando Pirates to play with Sibilibili at right back. Now, maybe to start it here, my playing of Sibilibili at right back is because we have lost, an offensive right winger. We obviously have signed Azonapolis and we have Relebogile Mofokeng, who can play on the right. However, my thing is, I still think Relebogile Mofokeng is leaving. And so I see Azonapolis as someone who's coming in to succeed Mofokeng than as someone who's coming to play alongside him. And so I think that left wing position, it's either it belongs to Mofokeng or Azonapolis in my view. Given or depending on how long Mofokeng stays at Orlando Pirates. And then on the right wing, I think that's the reason we got someone like Sibilibili. We're thinking of him as someone who's going to give us, that quality on the right side. But obviously, with someone like Sibilibili, you face the dilemma of you've got a player who can play as a wing back and is very good defensively, but is also very good going forward. And so how do you get him on? Do you play Sibilibili and another right back on the pitch where you've got people who can do right back for you? Or would you find other ways to kind of, maximize what you get from Sibilibili, as well as get another different kind of player on the pitch? Because my thing is, when you've got Sibilibili and you've got Shandu, say Shandu is playing at right back, or Libito or Dino van Rooyen, and you've got Sibilibili playing as a right winger, then you've got almost two similar identical players where on the bench you'll probably have Kabelo Dlamini, who could give you something different, or you could have Karim Kimvwidi, who could give you something different on the team. And that's where I come from with these things. And my thing is, obviously I propose for Sibilibili to play right back, but him playing right back then says, you've got to have a right winger who's not going to occupy that space for him. And therein comes my Tito proposition of playing right winger. My proposition is that when Tito is playing as a right winger, he's going to vacate that space. He's not going to be there most of the time. He probably will be there in defensive situations in our organization when we are trying to win the ball back, or when we are maybe kind of setting up in a bit of a low block, or whatever the case may be. Is of course he's going to be at right winger, but when Pirates is on the ball, the formation is going to look very much different. Tito is going to vacate that space because that's what Tito does. He doesn't stay at right winger when he's playing at right winger. He doesn't even stay at number 10 when he's playing as a number 10. And so you've very much got a player who's going to roam around and be in a place where he thinks he can hurt the opposition most, be in a place where he thinks he can impact the game most. And so he's going to very much vacate that space for Sibilibili if he's playing as right wing. But the beauty of having Tito at right winger and not at central attacking midfielder as well, and having a central attacking midfielder while having Tito on the pitch, is when Tito's playing as a number 10 and as a lone number 10, is when he starts doing the thing where he drifts and he vacates that space, it often leaves Pirates without someone in between the lines. It often leaves Pirates without possession and control and someone possessing that position, being there in between the lines, in the pockets, when Pirates need to find a pass into the pockets, into the dangerous zones of the opposition. Is that Tito often is the one who wants to drift and make that pass where he should be the one receiving that pass in that position. So if you've got a designated number 10 who's playing while Tito is on the pitch, you know that when Tito is roaming, and at some point he's going to find himself in that space as well, which in that case you'll have two players in between the lines, maybe even three if Rile also makes that that kind of movement, is then you have the beauty of always having someone between the lines of the opposition. You always have someone between the defense and the midfielders of the opposition. That's the other beauty of fitting someone like Karim Kimvidi, who wants to, roam around as well and find pockets of space to receive passes, is that you've then got these players who know how to find spaces on the pitch to hurt the opposition. And the other thing that hangs on this, I know I've now spoken about how the Sibilibili affects the Tito thing, or is good for Tito. I've already touched on why it allows Kimvidi as well to be on the pitch. Maybe not just Kimvidi, it allows to have someone like Cameron Danson, who we have seen in preseason and in the DDC, that he's a very good young midfielder with a lot of potential. Very good also in finding spaces, picking up like very intelligent positions on the pitch. Very neat on the ball. He keeps it very well. But he's also got the eye to find a teammate. He's also got the bravery and the eye to try and create stuff for his teammates. And so you can have, when you have Tito on the right wing, Cameron Danson playing as an offensive sort of number 8 or maybe number 10, if you will. You can have Snokolo Kwayiba playing as a number 10, who would be a second striker for you while Tito is on the pitch. And then you can still have a base in midfield of 2 pivots, where you've got Sipombule or Kabelo Dlamini and Talent Mbata or Sihlendouli. And on top of all of that, I think what it does, it then, because Sibilibili is going to be the one who offers us the width on the right, high up on the right, offering us the threat on the right side of attack for Pirates. He's going to be the one who gives us that. While Tito is kind of drifting into spaces deeper and in between the lines as well, and around the pitch where he can affect the game. You know that with a left back like Mbegezeli Mbogazi, you don't give him then the responsibility of being an offensive left back, but he can come in and tuck in and form a back 3 alongside someone like, say, Nda and Sasani. And then, he would be the one at the left centre-back position, with everyone kind of shifting towards the right, giving us that rest defence, especially when we are in possession, right? Giving us that kind of setup where, we are guarded against counter-attacks. If you've got, Mbogazi, you've got Nda, and you've got Sesani, who are kind of forming that back 3 when Pirates is in possession. And then wide right, you've got Sibilibili. Wide left, you've got Relebkhile Mofokeng. And then you've got a base in midfield, 2 pivots, say Sipombule and Sihlendouli. And then ahead of them, that you've got Karim Kimvidi there, or Cameron Danson, or you've got Snokolo Kwayiba playing as sort of like a second striker, or you've got maybe Masindi Nemtajela, or maybe you could even play Kabelo Dlamini there. And then you've got Tito then roaming, finding himself in between the lines as well, vacating that space that is for Sibilibili. And or you could play Kabelo Dlamini, who we know he can play that position as well. And then you've got a striker, obviously, in Tsofatso Mabasa or Boitumelo Radiopane, who's just staying centrally. And I think, in that kind of formation, in that kind of organization, especially in that kind of formation when we are in possession, it keeps our best players in positions where I think is their best. But this is just my proposition. I know there are like multiple ways in which we can play, but the way that I think is, Pirates is facing this thing where it's like, how do you fit so many central midfielders? Because obviously we've got a lot of depth at central midfield, but most of our very good players play in central midfield or central defense. How do you get them all in the team? And this is my kind of proposition. I think you can tinker with it around by saying, maybe if you've not got Sibilibili at right back and you've got someone like Dino van Rooyen, he can form the back 3, and Hoto, if he's playing, can be the one who's wide left. And then with Mofokeng, what you can do is then you can make him be kind of the number 10, similar to Maswanganyi on the right, but on the left. Mofokeng doing that sort of thing on the left. And then you can have someone like Ozonopolis wide right, or have Mofokeng wide right, and have Ozone be the one that gives us that number 10 kind of floating into the space like Tito would on the right, on the left in Ozone, or maybe Mfukeng. But yeah, so this is kind of like what I'm proposing in terms of how Pirates could look like with all these new players and all the experiments that we saw Abdeslam Ouaddou try out in preseason. I think it could lead to something that looks like that. But yeah, it would take bravery, of course. But I think maybe just last thing, because I know some people have asked me the question, but why do you want to play Tito on the right? Like, he doesn't have pace and that sort of thing. And well, firstly, the way that I'll rebuttal that is we've seen Pirates do that sort of thing. So maybe you can ask Pirates why they're playing Tito there. But I kind of have an answer. I think it's because it's not that... I know people are saying in transitions he's going to be costly for us because he's not going to be able to run and we're going to lose out on pace. And I think that's why you have Sibilibili playing as the one who's offensive at right back. The same way you see Hotto do it on the left, where Orlando Pirates is trying to maybe play it diagonal or switch the point of attack. You know, we saw it in preseason where Pirates was trying to switch the point of attack to the left. Hotto was the highest up on the left, receiving the pass, even though he's the left back. And I think if you flip that over, almost symmetrical, you can have Sibilibili be the one highest upright. Then the ball is going sort of from Bogazi all the way to Sibilibili, wide right. And so you've got the pace on the right if Tito is playing there. But you've seen it everywhere. I mean, you've seen the best teams do that. We've seen Bernardo Silva play as a right wing. I don't think he's very reputable for his pace, but he's reputable for his intelligence and knowing where to be, knowing how to play the passes to the faster players on the pitch. We've seen Mesut Ozil play as a right wing, and yeah, I think that sort of thing happens. I think even Leo Messi still playing as a right winger now, even though he's not got the speed anymore. And that sort of thing is because, you know, when a player is intelligent, he can play almost anywhere in attack, as long as you've got other pieces around him that enable for him to play there. But yeah, let me leave it here. I know my thoughts are kind of all over the place, but I hope you picked up a few things in what I've been trying to say. Anyway, up the mighty Bucks. Cheers. Well, I hope you enjoyed that video from Talking Buccaneers. If you did, please hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with all our future content.